They have an aging population as we do, but more than anything, they have an imbalance in young folks, males to females. He says the social instability is growing, not getting better. Now, China's either going to clamp down, they'll expand benefits, they'll export men to different parts of the world, they'll import women. Somehow they will deal with the problem. But it causes instability to this point, which is why I can't share the story. He said, we have a factory, one of our many factories in China was taken over for a day and a half by the laborer, and our plant manager was held hostage for a day and a half. And he said it didn't make the newspapers there, it didn't make the newspapers here, but he said, I'll tell you something, Alan, we're not dealing with that nonsense anymore. We're coming back to the U.S. Things like that, don't make the news, they don't raise to our conscious level. But the U.S. is a long way from being down and out in manufacturing or in services. We have a lot of economic power left ahead of us, and the world seems to recognize it more than we do going forward.
In terms of the capital flight issue, it is true that we are seeing a lot of investors interested in developing countries, and both of my colleagues talked about the investment opportunities for U.S. investors that we should all be looking at that. And in fact, and part of the Federal Reserve's quantitative easing, a lot of that money may go to emerging markets. Now, that will be not a totally lost game for us because to the extent the emerging markets use that capital to invest, they will then be buying U.S. products. So it's not a sunk cost. But it's also important to understand the accounting here. The United States is still running a huge current account deficit, which means that we on net have to import a huge amount of capital. And so we are a net capital importer in this environment and will probably continue to be that for a number of years.
The last questions are fearless leader questions. In the ideal world, or you as fearless leader, what should a healthcare reform bill look like? What would you like to see in it? I'd like to ask each of you.
Tort reform. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Tort reform.
I think much more individual responsibility in terms of assessing the cost of health care so that health care is treated like any good, that you look at the costs and benefits and that it's not viewed as a right to have unlimited health care regardless of the cost.
Added to that, paperless process would certainly help. And one more thing that I would add to what has already been mentioned is more of an outcome-based process where like the Mayo Clinic, the surgeon is not paid on how many surgeries. The clinic is paid for getting people well. So whether a surgery is necessary, whether it's an internist, whether it's therapy, their goal is to make the person well, and the cost is not dependent upon which procedure, and the doctors and staff are not getting rich depending on the people output. Outcome-based process would certainly make a difference.
And as fearless leader, what would be on your agenda over the next 2 years?
I would spoil my grandchildren. That's one of my first things that I'm going to do. In January, I'm going to get 2, so I'm looking forward to that. And I would institute that fair tax that I was talking about earlier. I think that is a key. And I would use the bully pulpit, third and last, this goes contrary to what has been mentioned earlier, so I'm trying to tread softly here. I would say to younger people who are displaced, people who are unemployed, you don't have to go to college. You can become a skilled machinist, carpenter, electrician. You can become a CNC operator, and that's an honorable living where you will earn above the median, and that not everybody's meant to go to college. And I would use the bully pulpit to honor people who are extremely bright engineers and scientists and people who make this country work and bring us away from the idea that get your liberal arts degree because at least it's a college degree. I'd much rather have people pursue that which they're interested in, that which they're good in, and that which would allow them to provide for their families without making them feel badly, I should say, that they never went to college. I think that's a mistake that we make in this country.
I might have just 3. One would be to increase individual responsibility for your own success of your business, for your investments, for your education, so that you have that individual responsibility as opposed to depending on government. Second, I do believe we have to deal at all levels of government with the deficit and the debt issues. And third, I think reinforcing the motive of this whole organization, economic illiteracy is rampant in this country, and we absolutely have to deal with that in the years ahead.
Deficit reduction, certainly encouraging folks to save more because that'll translate into investments, and I'm looking for it. These damn little things, I'd get rid of all of them. I was thinking about that today. I mean, 10 years ago, 10 years ago, I never carried one of these, and I was able to function just fine. And now I find myself all hours of the day checking on something. But these are the distractions that we're faced with: the noise, the clutter, and I think eliminating some of that and getting back to some pretty simplistic ways of enjoying life, and whether that's spending time with your grandkids or your kids. For me, I think that is a big priority. We lose sight of all the important things in our life because we're focused on a lot of this noise. And to me, that would be a big deal.
And finally, where would you put your money in the coming year?
I have most of my money in real estate. My wife and I have bought a fair amount of real estate. We think that will be a good play in the decade to come.
That's a question you should never ask an economist. But as I said, I would be diversified, but also I would be slightly overweight equities and underweight government bonds, as the Federal Reserve ultimately will have to exit from this easy monetary strategy.
Diversification, I like equities for the long term. 20 years of underperformance, it's about time they start to turn around. That makes sense. And for those folks that are really worried about some type of chaos or financial calamity, and they're chasing after gold and things of that nature, buy some farmland. Much better investment.
Yes.
The yield on it is important. You could probably earn anywhere from 7 to 10% on it, and folks will be looking for you when there's a crisis, because people still need to eat. But all kidding aside, I think those are some of the more traditional investments make a lot of sense.
And Missouri farmland.
Missouri
as well.
farmland, there you go.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm very consoled that it's not the end of Western civilization as we know it. Really appreciate your forecast today. As we wind up here, we do have this attendance prize coming, and here comes the fishbowl. You do have to be present to win.
And Julie, you have to be a real
My
person.
totally unbiased fingers pulling a card out here. And the winner is
Calvin Matthews.
And yes, we do have free parking. Be sure you get your ticket stamped in the back. And thank you all so much for coming today.
Oh, that was nice meeting you, Lynn. Thank you.